Would you like to learn from those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level? Best-selling author of Speakeasy and master connector Lou Diamond is here to connect you to some of the most inspiring and amazing people on this planet. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another spectacular episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond, and today on Thrive Loud, I'm excited because we got something a little different for you here today. We have someone who is... we have a highly sought-after, intuitive channel, mentor, and guide who helps people connect on the soul level. She's both the vessel to receive the messages as well as a guide to provide depth and context for the information coming through. She's a best-selling author and a speaker, and I'm delighted to have her here today because we are all about making connections here on Thrive Loud. Thrive Loud listeners, I bring you Stephanie Banks. Stephanie, welcome to Thrive Loud.
Thank you, Lou. I'm really happy to be here with you.
I'm excited because I just realized that Stephanie literally is very close to where I normally am in South Florida. And I just happened to be on this excursion up here in New York City doing a whole bunch of stuff for the 1000th episode of Thrive Loud. And she and I are not together in the same space, which is kind of weird. But maybe she could effectively channel through me over here and get me to communicate like we're right next door, which is how we're going to connect. All right. I love to do a little rewind, just kick the show off, Stephanie. I don't want to go all the way back to the womb, although maybe that's where we go. I want to understand kind of when you recognize that this was something within you or how this whole world that you've been focused on came to be.
Yeah. Well, I came across channeling as a necessity, really. And channeling, just to define it, it's just connecting to divine energy and wisdom. And that's not something that's like outside of us. It's something that's within each of us, I believe. So my mom had dementia. And as with dementia, the ability to communicate verbally and clearly starts to disintegrate, and the ability to understand information also can be disruptive depending on the type of dementia that you have. So I was finding that our relationship was really suffering as her dementia progressed. The things that I would naturally do to address our communication ruptures were not working. And I also was a clinician. I was a speech therapist, so I should know this stuff. This is what I did like daily, but it wasn't working well with my mom. So lucky for me, I had a best friend at the time who was a very gifted channel. She used to be able, I say used to because she's on the other side now. But she's the first person that exposed me to the ability to connect to souls that are here on the planet. And I asked her if she would channel my mom for me while my mom was living so that I could know what her soul needed so that we could have a better relationship and we wouldn't keep bumping up against one another and having these frustrating interactions. So she did. She channeled my mom's soul, and my mom soul told me exactly what I needed to know without mincing words. She told me where I was getting in her way and how I could be more supportive and connected to her. And when I implemented those suggestions, our relationship changed completely and forever. So I got to have this very precious time with my mom while she was in the body that was healing instead of frustrating and disconnecting. And that's what channeling did for that relationship for me. And I thought, well, if it can do this with me and my mom, where else could I apply this? So I started to study it and learn it and take classes and do trainings. And now I'm doing it and I'm teaching other people how to channel.
We have had numerous guests in the past that have some connection to channeling, and many of them were doing other things in their lives, and it was maybe a calling, no pun intended here, that was actually tapping into them, that they recognized it and eventually stepped in and owned it. There's one woman who literally would see people through colors and hues and actually start to paint as she was channeling and other things like that. And she actually did a live painting while we were on the show here on Thrive Loud. And And there's been other ones who have always known from the very beginning. So I want to do this little rewind. It was out of necessity, and your ability to tap into it was something that could be coached or taught to you. Do you think there are people that are more tuned in than others, maybe naturally, or do all of us have the ability to channel?
I'd say yes to both. Of course, there are people who are more tuned in. They tend to be those that identify as highly empathic or highly sensitive people. I fall into both of those categories. And we can all learn to channel. So you don't have to be in one of those categories in order to learn to channel. This is a birthright. We are all born with this ability to connect at a very deep level to that inner voice of truth within and to the existence of whatever you call it, spirit, source, creator, God, whatever words you use. It's innate in all of us. There's nobody who's without it, but that doesn't mean that everybody's interested in honing it the way I have chosen to.
The benefits, obviously, it's a communication vehicle in a very interesting situation where someone's having a tough time communicating.
Mhm.
Maybe share with the listeners some of the other things that one can benefit from having this level of connectivity.
I guess the question might be, where does it not apply in our lives? Because, for example, I am a parent and channeling has helped me. I cannot tell you how many times in better
we are so
parenting.
grateful to have you here with us today. And we have an incredibly special treat
I don't
for
know
our
what this is.
morning practice to really start out our day on the right foot and within the right being. So Ming Tong has been connected to ions and to Earthrise for many years and has been
Listeners need to know there was a part of this interview that just got really comical. Something played over on Stephanie's side of the horn, and she had no idea where it was playing from. That was why we had a little break in the action there. No big deal. So you were saying that there wasn't a place that it could apply, and
Correct.
channeling
There,
specifically the parent with your kids. Tell us.
yeah, there's nowhere where channeling doesn't belong because channeling is the highest divine wisdom. Where do we not want that in our lives, right? I want it when I'm parenting. I want it in my partnerships. I want it in my friendships. I want it in my in how I am as a daughter and a sister and an aunt. So it's an opportunity for us to always have access to what will be more loving and what will be more wise when we go to that wise heart, that wise place within ourselves. Everybody benefits. So you can use it to help you make a really important and big decision, buying a home, moving locations, switching jobs, choosing your partner. Channeling is the clarity that's provided to support us in making those very important decisions, as well as the most mundane of things too. You can tap into it for the really common things. I also channel animals. And I have a number of clients who will ask me to channel the soul of their companion animal to find out what do they need? Are they happy here? How do they feel about the new addition of the cat Fluffy? Do they like Fluffy? Do they need some space from Fluffy? Sometimes their animal will be towards the end of their life, and the client will ask me, can you channel their soul? I don't know when is the right time. I really need to be able to trust that. So it's just about tapping into this higher place that is purely loving. I channel from fifth dimensional consciousness, which is unity consciousness. It's all love. And we need that in every aspect and arena of our lives. So those are some of the practical applications of it, but really anything you can imagine will be channeling can support you in.
Note to self: I'm going to bring my dog over to your neighborhood in a couple of days. Uh, um, I wanted to ask this question. There's always a woo-woo factor to what you're doing in the sense that some people might not get it, or to your point, a reluctancy to want to accept these connections. When that's happening, and there's a little bit of letting go and trying to utilize that. I don't know how you can best describe it to the listeners. Talk about maybe when you're getting interference, if you would, or not getting as clear of a signal. What's it like from your seat when you run into some form of interference?
So here's how I explain channeling as from the standpoint of the brain. And I'm all about the clinical aspect of it because there's a science to channeling too. There's an entire book written on the science of channeling, and it's written by one of the lead researchers at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. And that is where they study channeling. They have hooked channelers up to electrodes. They've done all sorts of things to prove that this is actually a real thing. So if we look at the brain, there's a left hemisphere, which is based on logical thinking, problem solving, linear thinking. And then there's a right hemisphere, which is creative, expansive, intuitive, playful, receptive. And when we're channeling, we are activating the right hemisphere. We have to. It's not going to come through logic. That's not the space where we channel from. So most of us here walking around on the planet, at least in this Western culture, are very left brain
Yeah.
people. It's part of the culture. It's how we're raised. We're raised to believe there's a higher value placed on linear, critical, analytical thinking than there is on what the right hemisphere provides. So we have all these highly developed left hemispheres and underdeveloped right hemispheres, and we're not in balance. And so therefore we're disconnected, and accessing this channeling can seem out of reach for people who are logic oriented. Well, I'm a very logical person too, and there's a way to do both. And in terms of interference, the only time someone will be at risk of noise is if they are not doing the inner work to clear and to be open, receptive, and connected. And this is a practice. This is part of excellent self-care, just like you would eat nourishing food and drink clean water and get your exercise and plenty of sleep. So too do you need to be in meditation or some sort of peace creating practice. Time in the natural world is essential. Nourishing relationships, you think things that settle you in your body and in your heart and create space so that you can receive. Because if you're constantly in the noise, you are going to receive more noise.
Yeah.
But if you create space for peace, then that's going to be some of what the messaging that you receive comes through. So I don't receive interference when I channel, but that's because I know how to clear myself as a channel.
In the work that you do, and obviously doing channeling for others versus also helping others to learn how to tap into this, there's a balance there, which is obviously this nice little balance of your left and right brain on that logical and creative or emotional side. What happens when you get a headache? In the sense that I mean, like when you're thinking about how to organize the work that you're doing, you've put a process to this, to something that requires this. Talk about from something that came out of necessity to something that is now something you are doing, and putting this into play. Talk about that realization when you were obviously helping one and you recognized it was something you could help others, but to then make it your work, if you would, and this is the message that you're dealing with. That's a different step. Talk about that transition that you had for yourself and for your career.
Well, there's nothing unique to me that I don't see in any other beautiful human. So truly, like, I do not think that there's some sort of special, unique gift that only I have. I've got lots of great qualities. I'm appreciative of those, but it's kind of like if you learned a better way to cook, you'd use the better way to cook, right? If it was more nourishing, or you could protect more of the nutrients, or you could combine flavors and spices in different ways, you wouldn't go back to your old way that was bland and not so exciting. So that's what it was for me. Just, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I have access to this high vibrational, loving contact and information all the time, from the moment I am breathing till the time I go to sleep, and even during dreams, because there's no time when we're not open to receive. So it was just this wild recognition that and excitement and joy of what it was creating for me. And I knew that if I could learn to do this, and I had excellent teachers, but again, nothing terribly unique about the teachers. There's lots of teachers out there. Just find someone who resonates with you. You'll want to like their personality, their style, the way they communicate, the way they carry themselves. They'll want to feel authentic to you. You'll want to have trust with them. You can feel into all of that and trust your feelings around it. But this, you can learn anything. I really do believe this, and this is not outside the realm of what anyone can do. So when I decided to shift out of my clinical work as a medical speech pathologist, it really was more so that the universe set up a series of situations that made that hospital work very unpleasant. To the point where I had to say, well, I'm not even sure I want to do this anymore. It's not sourcing me in the ways it used to. And then I also had this channeling aspect that was sourcing me beautifully. So it was more just leaning more into the other, and letting go of the one that I don't that just wasn't for me anymore. And it had been a wonderful career. I did it for over 20 years. I loved it. But then it was time to shift. So I find in my life that the universe provides me always with very clear signs and signals. I'm not always listening.
Yeah.
I'm not always believing it. I don't always want to follow it. So I can dig in just like anyone else and stay stuck in my in what's not working until I'm ready to change.
Going back in the past, before you recognized that this was an option and that you had access to this, was there any particular point in time in your career or life that you wish you did have this knowledge and access that you have today? One specific instance, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I surely wish I had it, the understanding of it as a child, because going back to my relationship with my mom, it wasn't an easy one. She struggled with mental illness. And so if I had known then what I know now about that inner trust within myself, I would not have felt like I was the issue. I would not have taken on responsibility for her moods or her behaviors. I would have understood from the clarity of it all, like, no, no, sweetheart, you're just in a dynamic that's really challenging. And this adult is struggling, and this is what their struggle looks like, and it has nothing to do with you. So that's what channeling can provide, a very clear delineation between what's mine and what's not.
Yeah. We love asking guests on the program this question. Look, you've managed to thrive through necessity and create a work that is enlightening you and enlightening others along the way, which means on most days of late, you've been thriving. But we all have those days when we're not quite kicking on all cylinders and we're a little off our game. Stephanie, when you have trouble thriving, what practice do you seek or individual you seek out to get yourself back on the thriving track?
I actually take a nap. And it sounds so basic, and it is. It's like, Esther Hicks, who channels Abraham Hicks, she talks about when we sleep, we stop momentum. So when my momentum is getting going in that negative state, which it does because I am having a human experience, I fall asleep even just for a short bit. And when you wake up, you have a totally new slate to work with. So that's my go-to. And my second equal go-to is I get outside. I go to my garden. I watch the butterflies, the dragonflies, all the many fruits that we can grow in Florida. And it's healing. Mother Nature is very healing. She drains energy we do not need, and she replenishes us with energy we do need. So those are my go-tos.
Let's do the admin part of the show, Stephanie. Share all the places people can find you, websites, URLs, social handles, things coming up. Wherever you're able to connect to, people love to hear it from you versus me putting in all the notes, which is where we will put it, but they want to hear it from you.
Yeah, my website is soulinsight.com, and my social media is Stephanie Intuitive Channel.
Perfect. You ready to go down Fun Street here on Drive Loud?
Sure, let's drive.
All right. Speaking of driving, we were going to avoid the movie question because she just couldn't think of a movie thing or whatever. But I want to ask this question. How long have you lived in South Florida?
Oh, well, I actually went to high school here, but then moved away for a long time and then came back to help with my mom's dementia situation. So I have been here in my return about 16 years, more than 16.
Okay. What's the thing you miss most about when you leave Florida? What's the thing that you miss most when you come back home?
I actually have a hard time coming back home. I prefer the leaving part. Um, there is to me, there is a very clear shift in energy when I re-enter South Florida.
Really?
It feels dense.
Interesting.
This is not a negative comment on any of the people. I have so many beautiful friendships here and wonderful connections. But I feel it in my heart when I drive back in. I cross a certain place on the turnpike and I'm like, oh, here we are. You might say it's humidity related, but it's more than that. So what I love is to be in wide open spaces. And what I imagine for myself is to live on an animal sanctuary.
Mm.
So we have a lot of close spaces here in South Florida and not a lot of animal sanctuaries. So that's part of what I'm missing.
We're going to do the speed round here, which we call the Speakeasy Pub Crawl, where we stop at all your favorite places that help make you thrive. So there are no wrong answers because this is your favorite list. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. Of late, a song that you love to listen to, or maybe one that pumps you up.
Oh, I'm so bad with remembering names of things.
It could be an artist.
A singer, yeah, an artist that I like. Her name is Sanatam Kaur, and she sings Kundalini yoga type music that I listen to when I do my Kundalini yoga practice.
Awesome. Favorite food that's not a dessert.
I am a huge fan of veggies. I prefer a plant-based diet, so every vegetable is my friend.
Favorite dessert.
Everything. I've never met a dessert I don't like. I don't do dairy. But dark chocolate is my jam.
An activity you wish you did more of.
I would probably say to be outside even more than I am, even more gardening. Yeah.
An activity you wish you did less of.
Obsessing.
An activity that's relatively new to you, one you've recently tried, you like so much, you want to tell everybody else to try.
Well, there's a meditation tool I really like, and I don't know why I don't do it more often, but it's called the Inner Balance, and it's made by Heart Math Institute, which I don't know if you've heard of Heart Math work, but it's awesome. You clip it to your earlobe, and it gives you a readout of your coherence, and I love it, and I don't know why I don't do it more.
If I could snap my fingers and Stephanie Banks could be anywhere in the world, where is she?
She's going to be on her animal sanctuary somewhere where there's lakes and mountains.
Like it. Stephanie Banks, check her out. All the links that we provided here. Thank you so much for coming on Thrive Loud. Great to have you, and continued success for you. I'm going to get in touch with you in more ways than one.
Thanks, Lou.
To all the listeners out there, thank you for joining us. Until next time, keep moving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be God.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at Thrive Loud. And check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.